Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about territorial acquisitions and expansion and the implications of such things. Okay, so in starting off, we have to talk about what manifest destiny is. So in talking about manifest destiny, we can't not talk about John O'Sullivan. John O'Sullivan is this guy who wrote a lot of stuff. People listened to him, people liked him. Sorry, this feels really awkward. Anyways, and he wrote in the Democratic Review, and he pretty much coined the term manifest destiny. It's like, it's God's will for us to have the free development of the Western lands. It's just like good for us, more or less, give or take a couple words. And so that's the whole idea of manifest destiny. It's your God-given right to head westward. That this is the destiny of God. Like, who are we to deny that? Is the whole idea. However, know that there's that underlying idea then of the rhetoric that the Anglo-American, the white Americans view, that they have a cultural and racial superiority to the inferior people. That's an underlying rhetoric to manifest destiny, right? There's people already living out there in those Western territories, but they're going to be like, hey, listen, we're white Americans. We're doing it better than you are. We're going to teach you Republicanism. We're going to convert you to Protestantism. We're going to make your whole life better. So that's not the best thing, but you know, American history. Also, just a little side note, Gap a few years ago, oh, that was a really nice circle, created this shirt. It's a Manifest Destiny, and we're like trying to sell it, and people went bananas on Twitter, is tweeting all about it and all that, and then the guy who designed this shirt tweeted out that, so that's just that it's just a thing that never goes away. You always like history, like what does it matter? Like, because it does. It still comes up. These are issues that still remain, and there's things that still remain relevant today. Gap's making shirts about manifest destiny, my friend. Okay. Also talking about manifest destiny, we have to talk about this extremely famous painting. It's by John Gass. It's called American Progress, 1872 is when it's painted. Just so smart. So you can see this going from dark to light, that this angel with the Holy Bible and a telegraph wire in her hand is bringing in the light and those settlers and all this technology and all the awesome things of the eastern lands and our American empire, right? And we are driving out those natives as well as some natural animals, buffalo, and just this wild unconquered land that we're coming in and farming it up and bringing in trains, and woo, it's awesome. So manifest destiny. Okay, expansion into Oregon Trail. Oh man. Okay, so this is going to be a region claimed by both Great Britain and the United States. And this is going to allow people of both nations to settle, because both of them agree to that. They're like, whatever, it's so far out there, no one's actually going to make their way. In the 1840s, American interest is going to increase, though, because our Navy went out there and like, listen, these harbors are awesome. There's such fertile soil out here. Oregon for the win. And that's going to spurn Oregon fever. A lot of Americans then are going to start heading west in wagons with oxen. There's like, oh my gosh, covered wagons? Is there another word that comes before that? I'm having like a brain fart. Covered wagons westward with the oxen, that when you think of pioneers and settlers and, that image comes to mind, that's going to be the Oregon Trail. So they're going to be heading out on the Oregon Trail. They're going to, a lot of them are going to try to make it into Oregon, into Northern California. About 34,000 people are going to die of disease, mostly dysentery, which is just a big fancy word for diarrhea. About 10,000, they'll die from disease and exposure of, to the elements of both the flooding that would happen if you didn't leave at the right time of year, or if you hit the wrong time of year, the droughts that would happen, the extreme cold, the extreme heat, all of those things. We had to like time when you left from Independence like precisely right. About 10,000 people are then going to settle in the Willamette Valley. That's right here in Oregon, where they're going to settle. And as they settle, they are going to squat on that territory. They're going to squat on about 640 acres, because the idea was that they then hoped the American government would be like, hey, listen, you're a state now, so you can now sell off your land, and that would make their land claims legitimate. When they settle in, they are going to restrict the voting to white men. right away. All right, expansion into California. I included this map because I think it's hilarious when people from other countries, this one's from Australia, people from other countries draw the United States and they're like, ooh, I don't know these things, but they're like always know Texas and they always know California and in Florida in one way or another. Okay, so California. About 3,000 migrants are going to settle into the Mexican province of California during the 1840s. Mexico is going to grant land to the settlers in order for them to raise cattle. As they're raising cattle, New England businesses then are going to send agents into that area to buy leather for shoes and boots that they then use in their factories. As those agents are coming in, they're going to be marrying the daughters of those elite Mexican ranchers, the Californios, or what they're going to become, that they're adopting Catholicism and their way of life, way of dress, practices, things like that. Thomas Larkin is going to be one of those many agents who's going to come into the territory. He's going to want to assimilate. He did not want to assimilate, but instead he's going to want California to be annexed into the United States. So that starts the conversation of California and statehood. And that's just showing you how people are moving on during this time. Woo! Okay, impact on Native Americans. So, you know, there's people living in all these lands that, you know, we're just going through and just conquering the uncharted territory of the United States. So start off with the Great Plains. They had vast seas of wild grasses that stretched from Texas to north in Canada, like just giant, just acres and acres, just wild grassy fields, to west of the Missouri River all the way to the Rockies. This is going to be a home for nomadic people who are going to be hunting buffalo. It's going to include the Pawnees, the Apaches, the Comanches, the Kiowas, the Cheyenne. I'm forgetting one. I think I'm forgetting two. Okay, but it's a lot of different tribes that are going to be living in this territory. They're going to want European horses, though, and they're going to be weakened by European smallpox epidemics that come in 1779 and 1781, and that's going to kill about half of the Plains Indians. The others are going to be killed by European weapons, and so they're going to be forced off their land. The Lakota Sioux are going to be trading guns and ammunition with the French, the Spanish, and the Americans. They're going to be buffalo hunters, also nomadic. And they're pretty much able then to avoid outbreaks of disease. They keep to themselves to about the 1830s. The Lakotas are going to be the most dominant tribe in the central and northern plains. They're going to become very prosperous as they sell the buffalo hides to American fur companies and the Missouri Fur Company. Herds are going to be declining, though, as the railroad is making out into the west. People would sit on top of the train cars and just shoot buffalo as they went through, and just huge. I'm going to show you these pictures. Just huge, just like stacks of buffalo hides. It's so many. So the herds are going to be declining. The Sioux did not understand the market system well enough to demand proper prices, and by the 1860s, the number of buffalo herds had declined significantly, and this is going to impact their way of life, as well as their interaction with white U.S. government, as well as citizens. Okay, the election of 1844 and 54-40 or fight. What does that mean? So, the election of 1844. The election is going to significantly alter U.S. policy. And the West Southerners are going to want Texas annexed to keep the British from making gains into North America. In 1843, Americans in the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes are going to start organizing state conventions where the Democrats and the Whigs are going to call for the United States to control the entire Oregon country from Spanish California to Russian Alaska, which gives us our 54-40. This latitude. Northerners are going to renew the calls for the annexation of Texas. In 1844, the Tyler administration is going to write a treaty in order to annex Texas. Van Buren and Clay, who are both running for president, are going to oppose this because they don't want the Senate to undertake the debate on slavery, because they know as soon as more territory comes in, that really awkward question is going to come up again. In 1844, the election is going to be centered on Texas and Oregon. And James Polk, who is going to be a Democrat from Tennessee, is going to use the campaign slogan 54-40 or fight, and that's going to show his support for claiming all of Oregon to the Alaskan border. Polk is going to win, and he calls for the annexation of Texas, and that's going to increase. And a joint resolution brought it into the Union. They're become a 28th state, in December 1845. War with Mexico. Okay, so Texas has voted to join the Union. Mexico is going to break off the diplomatic relations with the United States because, that was like partially their territory. So, whew, that's awkward. Polk is going to begin efforts to gain other northern provinces of Mexico, like California and New Mexico. They aren't called that right now. The diplomatic relations is going to completely break down. Polk then is going to send, who's our president at this point, is going to send 2,000 soldiers to occupy the disputed lands. War is going to begin between Mexico and the United States. Polk is going to accept a negotiated settlement with Britain that's going to divide the Oregon country on the 49th parallel. The army is going to be led by General Zachary Taylor, and it's going to end in 1846. The U.S. controls most of northeast Mexico. They're going to secure California early in 1847, and the fighting is going to continue with the United States attacking Mexico City. They go all the way down, and they're going to seize the capital September 1847, and they defeat Santa Anna. Okay, the Wilmot Proviso. So our northern Whigs, think of them as the precursor to the Republicans, and when I say Republicans, again, remember, they're the liberal party for this time period. They oppose the Mexican-American War on moral grounds, and the Democrats are going to split across sectional lines of North and South. Congressman David Wilmot, he's going to be Democrat from Pennsylvania, is going to propose that slavery be prohibited from any slavery obtained through the Mexican-American War. And the Whigs and the anti-slavery Democrats are going to support that. It's going to be rejected by the Senate, and the expansionist fervor over expanding slavery is going to continue, but not without hesitation from those who fear war. There's going to be people who are like, wow, this is scary and terrible. This could go really terribly. They see the forest for the trees, right? There's so many people that are focused on the individual events and just the individual happenings, but they don't see the big picture. They don't see where everything's going, and they're not worried about the long run. They're just worried about getting what they want done now. Most people are in life. Gentle side note, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, sorry, my Spanish is excellent. The United States is going to pay, it says in 1848, the United States is going to pay Mexico $15 million in return for more than 1/3 of its territory. Agreements are going to be reached on granting land in Oregon, so it's going to give us more land. Back at it, let's do this. Okay, so the Free Soil Movement. So there's going to be an increasing fear that the slave power is going to be growing in the United States and that they feel like it's dominating national life. In order to thwart that, Northerners are going to start what they call the Free Soil Movement. And they're going to be saying that slavery is threatening republicanism and Jeffersonian ideals, and that they want the free soil, the new land coming in, to be free. And in the election of 1848, Polk is going to decide to not run for re-election. The Whigs, are liberals at the time, are going to be dominated by General Taylor, a Louisiana slave owner, who does not support the expansion of slavery to the new territories. Taylor's going to win 47% of the popular vote and an electoral majority. This is a cartoon, a political cartoon that's going to become even more relevant as we move forward in talking about slavery and its expansion and that continuing crisis to the Union. But this is supposed to be our free soiler, and slavery is being forced down the throat of the free soiler by our Southerners here, and that's going to become extremely important when we get to Kansas and Nebraska. Okay, California, the gold rush and 49ers, not the football team. So in 1848, gold's going to be discovered in California, and there's going to be a rush of single men that are just looking to get rich fast. And they're going to be coming into the West. They're going to be coming in ships, wagons, anything that they can. More than 80,000 men are going to be living there by 1849, hence the 49ers. And they're going to be living in cramped quarters. They're going to be doing a lot of gambling, drinking a lot of alcohol. There's going to be a ton of prostitutes, and it's going to be insane. There's going to be ruthless treatment of the natives there, the Mexicans, the Chileans, and the Chinese, sorry. Disease is going to kill many. Many men are going to be disillusioned by their failure to find wealth, and I'm going to be very upset by it. I didn't mean to change the slide. Just my finger. I don't know. So the 49ers gold rush, and that is going to lead to the discussion of California as a state. Okay, so John C. Calhoun, this guy. He is going to serve as vice president, secretary for a couple different things for a couple different presidents. And mostly he's going to be a senator from South Carolina. He's going to be an extremely influential leader and an influential figurehead. And a lot of the words he says are going to be just rallying cries for the South. And one of those is going to be slavery follows the flag. And that is the idea. And this is going to be talked about more in Dred versus Scott. The idea that no matter where you go, your slave is property into those new territories. So it's pretty much declared null and void of slavery being abolished in the new territories, because so you start a new plantation in another state that is free, but you bring all your slaves with you, like, the guys can't tell you no because they're your property according to that law. Okay. I didn't include a picture. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. So Compromise 1850. California is going to ratify an anti-slavery constitution, and they're opening debate for admission into the Union. And they're like, hey, listen, we want to be a state. Debate is going to ensue about whether California should be admitted as a free or slave state. And Senator Stephen Douglas, he's going to be so important later. He's a Democrat from Illinois. It's going to call for popular sovereignty. It says, hey, let's give the power to the people. They get to choose, they get to vote, they get to decide what they want. This is going to have a passage of 5 laws that is going to be called the Compromise of 1850. Some people think that this is the turning point into the Civil War, that this moment is the moment that everything changes and there's no turning back. And so the very first thing is going to be a new Fugitive Slave Act. Is going to make it even tighter restrictions about runaway slaves and the support and abiding and aiding of those runaway slaves and anyone involved in that. So if you are helping runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad, then you can get in just as much trouble. And now the federal government is supposed to help the slave catchers. California will be admitted in as a free state. They're going to settle a boundary dispute between New Mexico and Texas in favor of New Mexico, so trying to balance between our free and our slave states. They're going to abolish slave trade in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, kind of setting the tone for us moving forward. And they're going to establish New Mexico and Utah with popular sovereignty on the issue of slavery. That is going to be kind of the status quo then, the idea of popular sovereignty and slavery moving forward, and that just means things are going to get way more contentious as we move forward into the Civil War. So I hope you enjoyed this beautiful, slightly dysfunctional lecture. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come see me during key time, before, after school, or to write it on an index card and submit it into your class box, because someone else might have the same question as you. Hope you enjoyed this fantastic lecture.